রানায় কাইট ফার্স্ট ইউনিটটা অলরেডি করানো হয়ে গেছে। আজকে সেকেন্ড ইউনিটটা স্টার্ট করা হবে। ফার্স্ট ইউনিটে আমরা জানতে পেরেছি যে দ্য ন্যারেটর হু used to live with her father and brother in Big Half Moon Island, and the father was the keeper of the Big Half Moon lighthouse, and they spent time happily in the island, deserted island rather, because there were no others except Claude and the narrator and the father. And moreover, we have also learned that the narrator didn't have any relatives. They had perhaps relatives, but they didn't know that they had relatives. Once the narrator asked father about why they didn't have any relatives, but father looked quite sad. That's why they felt that they shouldn't have asked the father these questions about relatives. So in unit 2 we will further learn what happened to the narrator, and how the title our runaway kite, how the kite was able to bring back all the lost members of the family. It is lovely on the big half moon in summer. When it is fine, the harbor is blue and calm, with little wind and ripples. Every summer we had some hobby. The last summer, before Dick and Mimi came, we were crazy about kites. A boy on the mainland showed Claude how to make them. Back on the island, we made plenty of kites. So it is always lovely on the big half moon in summer. I told earlier that summer and spring is quite similar in the cold dominated nations, and it is the description of this location is in Canada. So Canada, we know that is quite cold dominated country. That's why summer is quite pleasant in that particular there. When it is fine, the harbor is blue and calm. When the weather is fine, the harbor looks blue and calm. Blue and calm, that means that the sea waves is quiet rather, and it looks bluish with little wind and ripples. Little wind and ripples, the wind doesn't move very fast, so there are little ripples on the sea. Every summer we had some hobby. The hobby means, you know, that hobby is a particular inclination for something. Last summer, before Dick and Mimi came, we were crazy about kites. So now the kites, the title, yeah, we know that in the title it is mentioned our runaway kites. So now the significance of the title can be seen from here. A boy on the mainland showed Claude how to make them. So Claude learned from a boy on the mainland how to make kites. Back on the island, we made plenty of kites. Claude would go round to the other side of the island, and we would play shipwrecked mariners signaling to each other with kites. So Claude, he moved to another side of the island, and they used to fly the kites, and by doing so they actually signal each other, as shipwrecked mariners in earlier times used to indicate that they are lost in the deep sea. So as shipwrecked mariners used to signal by something like kites like thing. So in the same way, the narrators and Claude, her brother, they used to play this game, and they used to signal each other by flying kites. We had a kite that was big and covered with a lovely red paper. We pasted gold tinsel stars all over it and had written our name full on it: Cloudility and Philippality, Big Hamun Lighthouse. So tinsels, you know that we had a kite that was big and covered with lovely red paper. So they had made big kites. It is covered with red paper. We pasted gold tinsels, you know that strips of shiny material used for decoration. You have seen it. These little materials, the children, they generally paste it on books and many other things, so it glitters. In the same way, these tinsels were pasted on the kite, and it looks beautiful, and had written our names full on it: Cloudility and Philippality. Their names were also written on the kite. This is a quite strange hobby, you know that, because they had written their names, so that and also their address: Big Hamun Lighthouse. So everything is written over here over the kite. So if the kite is torn away, and if it lands somewhere else, then perhaps the habitants of that particular place might find them. One day there was a grand wind for kite flying. I'm not sure how it happened, but as I was bringing the kite from the house, I tripped and fell over the rocks. My elbow went clear through the kite, making a big hole. So one day an accident happened. There was a grand wind. The wind was quite good one, because you know that wind is necessary for the flying of kite. I'm not sure how it happened, but as I was bringing the kite from the house, I tripped. How it happened, how the accident happened, the narrator didn't have any idea. But somehow, when she was bringing the kite, she tripped. She perhaps stumbled with something else and fell over the rocks, and her elbow went clear through the kite. So the elbow just made a kind of hole in the kite, making a big hole. So since it went clear through the kite, it made a big hole. We had to hurry to fix the kite if we wanted to send it up before the wind fell. So since the wind was glorious at the time, wind was good one, so they were in a mood of hurry, because they had to repair this torn part of the kite, and they are doing it quite fast. We rushed into the lighthouse to get some paper. So a torn part had to be repaired by some paper. That's why they got into the lighthouse to have some paper. We knew there was no more red paper. Red paper is just unavailable at the time. So they knew it, that there was no red paper anymore. So if they repaired it with the red paper, then the look of the kite couldn't have changed. But if they repaired it with some other color paper, then perhaps it might not have looked in the same way as it could have been earlier, with the same red color. We took the first thing that came handy, an old letter lying on the bookcase in the sitting room. They were quite in a mood of hurry. That's why the first thing available in their hand was a letter. So with this letter, they tried to fix the kite. We patched the kite up with the letter, a sheet on each side, and dried it by the fire. So they pasted it by some kind of gum, and then they dried it so that it doesn't get loosened later on. Dried it by the fire. We started out, and up went the kite like a bird. So the wind was glorious. Now they came out since the kite was repaired. Though there was the patches, you know that the same color paper was not available. That's why with a letter it was fixed, it was repaired. So the kite didn't look quite good one, nice one. But somehow they were in a hurry. That's why they had to fly the kite since the wind was quite glorious. That's why they came out, and they just flew the kite, and the kite went off like a bird. The wind was glorious. It soared. Soared means fly high. All at once, snap. Snap means torn apart. The thread just torn apart. And there was Claude standing with a bit of cord. Cord means the thread in his hand, looking foolish. So it was torn apart, and the kite flew away to some other part. Our kite had sailed away over to the mainland, so it flew away to the mainland. Since the wind was glorious, so it moved away from the lighthouse, from the island to the mainland. And Claude was looking quite foolish, since he had the remaining part of the thread of the cord in his hand, and he didn't have anything to do, because the wind was glorious. Because of perhaps it is quite possible that since the wind was quite fast, it was moving very fast. That's why, because of that, the thread just was torn apart. That's why the kite has torn apart, and it flew to the mainland. So in the second unit, we come to learn that the importance of kite, and how the kite will bring back the lost family. We will learn later. In the third part, it will be concluded. But in this particular lesson, we have learned that in winter, in the first unit we have learned that in winter the narrator used to go back to the mainland, but when spring comes back, that time they return back to the island. And in spring or in summer, the island looks quite beautiful, and there were because the wind didn't move very fast, so the sea looks quiet, and it is the mood is happy one. And Claude, narrator's brother, he had learned how to make kite from a boy from the mainland. And there in the island, they started making a great number of kites there. One day they made big kites with red paper. But an accident happened. The narrator, while she was bringing the kite from the lighthouse, she perhaps stumbled with a rock and fell down, and her elbow went clear through the kite and there was a big hole in the kite. So that's why since the wind was glorious, so they were in a state of hurry to repair the kite. They didn't have any kind of paper, any kind of red paper, and they did not also find other kind of paper. So they found a letter on the bookcase available in the lighthouse, and with the help of this letter they patched the kite with gum, and then they just started flying the kite. But wind was moving very fast, and the thread torn away and the kite flew away to the mainland. So in this way the entire second unit comes to an end. So in the last unit, third unit, we will further conclude how the family will be reunited. Okay, so that's all for today.